I was born at Sacred Heart Hospital in Springfield, Oregon in 1967. My parents divorced before I was walking, and then my mother married my dad. Twice. I want to be precise because the words matter. The man who left is my biological father. The man my mother married, and married again, is my dad. He was my dad my whole life, as far back as I can remember anything. Two different men. Only one of them is a father. I didn't think much about it growing up. Kids don't. But it taught me something before I could form a sentence. Family isn't a fact. It's a practice. Biology handed me one man, and it didn't make him anything. He was gone before I could walk. What made my dad was showing up. Every day, for years, on 80 acres that never once cared how anybody felt about it. He did the thing, repeatedly, in the cold. That's the whole definition. And she married him twice, which means somewhere in the middle it came apart, and she decided there was still something there. Brave or stubborn? Probably both. Most good decisions I've watched people make were both. It's why I've never accepted that a broken thing is a finished thing. Terrible turnover, a manager drowning, a dining room people are trying to get through. That restaurant is broken. It is not finished. Here's where this lands professionally, because it isn't sentimental. This industry loves to say we're like family. I distrust that phrase more than almost any other, and now you know part of why. In most restaurants, it's a claim, something painted on a wall to ask for loyalty nobody's earned. I grew up inside the real version. Nobody in my house ever said we were like family. He just kept showing up, and after enough years, the word belonged to him. You don't say it, you do it, until somebody else says it about you. I grew up an only child on 80 acres, Black Angus. My whole world was that ranch. An only child on a ranch learns two things early, and they seem to contradict each other. First, you're alone with the work. Nobody's coming. The animals don't care that you're 8 or tired or that it's snowing. Second, and it sounds like the opposite but isn't, nothing out there survives by itself. The cattle need you. You need the neighbors. The neighbors need you when their truck won't start in February. Self-sufficiency and total dependence live in the same house, and anybody who says otherwise has never had a cow go down at midnight. That's a restaurant. Exactly a restaurant, and it took me 40 years to say it that plainly. A room full of people who each have work nobody else can do for them, and who can't get through a Friday night without each other. The server can't cook. The cook can't read the table. If any one of them stops, the whole thing seizes up in about 11 minutes. I've watched restaurants try to solve that with a poster about teamwork. You can't poster your way to it. On a ranch, nobody puts up a sign about pulling together. You find out at 2 in the morning who shows up. One more thing an only child on a ranch learns. You become good company for yourself. Which is why 40 years of the loudest rooms in America never wore me down the way it wore other people down. I could give everything I had to 200 strangers on a Saturday, drive home in complete silence, and be fine. The ones who burned out often needed the noise. I never needed it. I liked it. Over a long career, that's an enormous difference. So that's where this starts. Springfield, Oregon, a hospital named Sacred Heart, which I've always thought was a little on the nose for somebody who spent her life on care. An only child, 80 acres, Black Angus, and a dad who wasn't required to be one, and was one anyway, my whole life. I've needed that lesson more than once. I need it now, for reasons I'll get to. My mother ran a little diner about a block from my elementary school. Though where I grew up, there weren't really blocks. There weren't sidewalks either. But that's the distance, a block, if we'd had them. I'd walk over after school and make myself useful, carrying drinks, carrying small things out to tables. Nobody hired me. Nobody trained me. I was a kid in a diner where my mother worked, and I found the thing I could do, and I did it. Here's what I remember, and it's not the diner. People thanked me. That's it. That's the whole memory. I would set a glass down in front of somebody, and they'd look up and say, "Thank you." And something in me lit up like a pilot light. I was 8 years old, and I had just found out that being useful to a stranger is its own kind of payment. I want to be careful here because that sentence gets abused in this industry. It gets used to justify not paying people. It gets used to tell a server she should be grateful for the feeling and not ask about the schedule. That's not what I mean, and I'll fight anybody who twists it that way. What I mean is simpler. Some people are built so that being needed by a stranger does something to them. I'm one of them. I found out at 8, and I've never once been confused about it since. Then one day, something happened that I've carried for 50 years. A little girl, 3, maybe 4, was jumping between the benches. She tripped. She put her tooth right through the skin around her lower lip. She started screaming. There was blood. And everything changed in a moment. Happy laughter and playing 1 second. An emergency the next. We got her an ice pack and towels. We wrapped up her family's order so they wouldn't lose their dinner on top of everything else. And away they went to the local doctor's office for a stitch. That's the whole story. Nobody was heroic. It took maybe 4 minutes. But I want you to notice what happened in those 4 minutes, because it's the thing I've spent my career trying to make teachable. Nobody had to be told what to do. The ice came, the towels came. Somebody thought about the food. Somebody thought about the family's evening. In 4 minutes, a restaurant that was doing one thing turned completely around and did a different thing. And it did it without a meeting. That's culture. That's not training. Training is what you do so people know the steps. Culture is what decides whether they move at all. Emergencies in restaurants are not as common as you might expect, but they happen. A guest goes down. Somebody chokes. A cook opens his hand. A pipe bursts. A car comes through the front window. I've seen it. And how a staff responds to a guest in that moment tells you everything. But here's the part I didn't understand until much later, and it's the part I care about most now. How that staff member gets treated later, when they're the one with the emergency, tells you the rest. I have watched restaurants move heaven and earth for a guest with a split lip. And I have watched those same restaurants tell an injured employee to finish the shift. Same building, same night, same people. That's the gap this whole thing is about. I saw the first half of it when I was 8. It took an accident of my own to make me understand the second half.